You know that feeling when something breaks, and your first thought isn't, how do I fix this? It's, can I even afford to fix this? Maybe it's your car. You hear a sound you've never heard before, somewhere between a grind and a rattle, and your stomach just drops. Not because you're worried about the car, because you're running the math in your head before you've even pulled over. You're thinking about the credit card you already have a balance on, the paycheck that's still 6 days away, the rent that's due before that. The mechanic is going to say some number, a real number, and you're going to have to decide whether to put it on plastic or beg someone or just drive it and hope. Or maybe it's a medical bill, or a flight home for something you didn't plan for, or your landlord raising the rent and you realizing you have exactly zero leverage because leaving would cost more than staying. That feeling, that specific tight-chested, slightly nauseated feeling, is one of the most universal experiences of adult financial life, and most people assume it just fades eventually as you earn more. But what if the number that makes that feeling go away is a lot smaller than you think? Most financial content will tell you that wealth is about the big moves. Maximize your 401k, invest early, buy real estate. And look, those things matter. But here's what they're missing. There's a specific threshold, a number that's humble enough to feel almost boring, and crossing it does something to your brain, your nervous system, and your decision-making that no investment account balance can replicate. That number is $20,000. Liquid, accessible, yours. Not invested in an index fund you can't touch, not tied up in equity, sitting somewhere boring and safe, a high-yield savings account maybe, doing almost nothing. And yet that quiet, boring pile of money is worth more to your actual financial life than the next $200,000 you'll ever earn. That's not a typo, and I'm going to prove it. I've spent a long time thinking about the psychology of money, not the spreadsheet version of it, but the way it actually behaves in real human brains under real human stress. If the way this channel approaches money feels different from what you've heard before, hit subscribe, because this video is part of a much bigger conversation about why smart people make financially irrational decisions and what you can actually do about it. Picture someone pushing a boulder up a hill, not a cartoon boulder, a real one, rough, awkward, heavier than anything you've ever moved. And the hill isn't steep at a consistent angle. It gets steeper near the bottom and then gradually levels off near the top. So the first 30 feet, that's where most of your energy goes. Every inch costs you. You're bent over, both hands white-knuckling it, using every muscle group you have just to keep it from rolling back and crushing you. But somewhere around the halfway point, something changes. The slope flattens. The boulder is moving. You're still pushing, but now the effort to progress ratio has completely flipped. You're covering ground faster with less strain. And once you crest that hill, the boulder starts to move on its own. You're not pushing anymore. You're just guiding. That's exactly what the first $20,000 represents. Not the destination, not even the midpoint. It's the point where the physics of your financial life change. Before it, every dollar you earn is immediately consumed by the friction of existing. Late fees, overdraft charges, high-interest debt, emergency expenses with no backup. After it, something genuinely different starts to happen. Money starts to create the conditions for more money. The boulder is on your side. Here's why most people don't realize this, and this is the part that sounds like armchair psychology until you live it. And then it's undeniable. When you're operating without a financial cushion, your brain is in survival mode. And I don't mean that metaphorically. Research from Princeton and Harvard published in the journal Science found that financial scarcity literally consumes cognitive bandwidth, the mental resources you'd normally use for planning, creativity, and long-term thinking. The researchers estimated the cognitive drain is equivalent to losing an entire night of sleep, every single day, so you're not just broke. You're making every decision about your job, your relationships, your health, with a brain running on cognitive fumes. You're not bad with money. You're not undisciplined. You're depleted. And here's the psychological shift that happens once you cross that $20,000 threshold. It's not that you become a different person overnight. It's that the part of your brain running the background survival calculation, the one constantly monitoring, am I okay? Am I safe? Can I handle what's coming? Quiets down. Not completely, but enough. Enough that you start to think about next month, then next year, then the version of your life that's 5 years from now. That's a different brain operating your life. That matters. Let me make the math real, not hypothetical round numbers real, actually real. Say you're starting from zero. No savings, no cushion, maybe a small amount of revolving credit card debt. You're putting aside, let's say, $640 a month. That's achievable for a lot of people with some deliberate adjustments. Not painless, but achievable. At that pace, you hit $20,000 in about 31 months, roughly 2.5 years. That feels like forever. And honestly, for those 31 months, it is a grind. Because you're fighting the physics of the bottom of that hill. Every unexpected expense is a setback. Every month feels fragile. But now here's where the math gets interesting. Once you have that cushion, your financial losses start to drop. You stop paying $34 overdraft fees. You stop putting emergencies on a credit card at 24% interest. You stop making panic decisions, like taking the first job offer because you have to, that cost you income over the long run. Research suggests people without financial buffers pay what economists call a poverty premium of somewhere between $400 and $1,000 per year in avoidable fees and costs alone. So that next $20,000, you're building it faster. Not 31 months and maybe 22. The 20,000 after that, maybe 16. The acceleration isn't because you got a raise. It's because you stopped leaking. That first pile of money doesn't just sit there. It patches the holes in the bucket. Now here's the most important point in this entire video. And I know that sounds like something self-help gurus say before they tell you to shift your mindset. But stay with me, because this is actually practical. Crossing this threshold changes who you are, not just what you have. There's a concept in behavioral economics called identity-consistent behavior. Basically, once you see yourself as a certain type of person, your decisions start to unconsciously align with that identity. Once you have a $20,000 cushion, you start to think of yourself as someone who handles things, not someone things happen to. You start to ask different questions. Instead of, can I afford this? The question becomes, is this the best use of what I have? Those sound similar. They are completely different questions. One is reactive. One is strategic. And here's the thing. You can't fake your way into the strategic question. You can read all the personal finance books you want. You can write out your values and your goals in your vision board. But until that buffer is real, the survival brain keeps interrupting. The shift isn't just psychological, it's earned, by putting in the work to build the cushion first. Let me show you what this looks like in real life, because this is where things get really interesting. Before the cushion, you are reactive. Every problem feels like a threat. Your best friend mentions they're starting a small business and needs a co-founder. You think, I can't risk it. Your coworker tells you about a rental property going for below market value 2 towns over. You think, I can't do anything about that right now. You hear about a professional conference, the kind where actual decision makers go, the kind that could change your career trajectory, and the registration fee is $400. You think, not this year. After the cushion, same opportunities, completely different relationship to them. You can say yes to the co-founder conversation because the risk is manageable. You can at least explore the property because you have the breathing room to think. You can go to the conference because $400 is no longer a Category 5 financial event. This is what people mean when they say money goes to money. It sounds like a conspiracy, like the rich get richer for mystical reasons. But the non-mystical reason is that having a buffer gives you access to time, to risk, to the ability to say yes when something real comes along. The people without the buffer aren't less smart or less capable. They're just operating in a world where every opportunity comes with a cost they can't yet afford. Here's something that sounds backwards, but I promise it's right. Once you have a real financial buffer, you stop obsessing over small purchases. And that's not laziness or complacency. It's actually the smarter behavior. Most personal finance culture teaches you to track your $3 coffee, cut your subscriptions, pack your lunch. And look, I get it. Those habits matter when you're building the foundation. But here's what they're missing. The people who have genuinely changed their financial lives didn't do it by optimizing $6 lattes. They did it by making 1 or 2 big, correct decisions about housing, income, and long-term investing, and then leaving the small stuff alone. Because willpower is finite. Mental bandwidth is finite. If you're spending cognitive energy every single morning deciding whether you deserve a coffee, you have less energy available for the decisions that actually move the needle. Negotiating your salary, evaluating a major purchase, thinking clearly about a financial opportunity. The wealthy don't think less about money because they have more of it. They've freed up mental RAM by making the big decisions right, and then giving themselves permission to not sweat the rest. And this feeds directly into something that changes your career too. Maybe more than anything else we've talked about, there's a concept I think about a lot. Walking away money. Not quit your job today money. Not financial independence. Just enough that you could say no. To a bad client. To a toxic situation at work. To a salary offer that's below what you're worth. When you don't have a cushion, you can't say no to anything. And the people on the other side of the table sense that. It's not that they're predatory. It's that confidence and desperation both communicate themselves without you saying a word. Your negotiation posture, the way you follow up, the things you're willing to accept, all of it signals your actual leverage. But when you have that buffer, you walk into that negotiation differently. You ask for the number you actually want. You're willing to wait. You're willing to walk. And here's the beautiful part. You probably won't have to walk, because the confidence is real, and real confidence is persuasive in a way that rehearsed confidence isn't. Now, I have to warn you about something, because there's a very predictable mistake people make the moment they hit this milestone. They celebrate by spending it, not all at once, but incrementally. A slightly nicer apartment because I can afford it now. A new car because the old one embarrassed them. A wardrobe refresh, a vacation they'd been putting off. And I understand the impulse. You worked hard for this, you sacrificed for this, you deserve to enjoy it. And you do. But here's what they're missing. The moment you drain that cushion to fund a lifestyle upgrade, you are right back at zero, and the grind starts over. Except now you have higher fixed expenses, which means it'll take longer to rebuild than it did the first time. Don't do this. The $20,000 is not a reward. It is a seed. It's the thing that makes everything else possible. The better opportunities, the confidence, the negotiating power, the compounding math. The moment you treat it like a finish line, you've converted your foundation into a floor you're going to fall through. The milestone is not the destination. It's the beginning. Let me zoom out for a second and show you the big picture irony here. The average American household spends somewhere around $45,000 on a new car. And then they do it again, roughly every 6 years. If you instead drove a used car that's 3 to 4 years old, reliable, paid for in cash, and invested the difference, the lifetime difference over 30 years compounds to somewhere in the range of $350,000 to $500,000, depending on your returns. $500,000 for driving a slightly less impressive car. And here's the beautiful irony. The person driving the new car, making the monthly payment, carrying the insurance premium, pretending they're doing fine, is stressed. They don't sleep as well as they should. They are one layoff away from a very difficult conversation, and the person in the used car doesn't look impressive, doesn't get the compliment in the parking lot, but they sleep. They have options. They are quietly, undramatically building something real. The people who look wealthy are often one emergency away from broke. The people who are wealthy often look fine, not flashy, just fine. There's a specific kind of peace in that. It doesn't photograph well, but it's the thing everyone actually wants. Here's where I want to leave you. The version of you who has a $20,000 cushion is not some distant fantasy. It's a math problem with a real solution, and you have more ability to solve it than the survival part of your brain is currently willing to admit. The work is real. The timeline is real. The friction is real. But so is the shift that happens on the other side of it. You are not building a number. You are building a different version of yourself, one who makes decisions from a place of choice, not fear. One who sees opportunities instead of threats. One who walks into rooms differently. Start that boulder moving, even if it's slow, even if it rolls back once or twice, because the physics change, and when they do, you'll feel it. The next step after the cushion? That's where investing actually starts to get interesting, and we'll get into that in the next video.